Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, a channel about making computer role-playing games using the free program Twine and the Sugarcube format for Twine. I recently got a comment from a viewer, username EthanSKE, and they said, among other things, they wondered whether I would ever make a video on the settings API in Twine. And I didn't really know what that was, but I said, yep, I'll have a look at it anyway, and if I can work it out, I'll do a video on it. Well, actually, I think I'm going to do at least a couple of videos on it because it's a fairly complicated topic, but this is the first one of those videos. So, API stands for Applications Programming Interface, and it refers to a set of structures that allow two programming languages to talk to each other. In this case, it seems to mean that it allows JavaScript to talk to the Sugarcube, Sugarcube's sort of built-in language. As you will know if you've been following this series, Sugarcube uses JavaScript quite a lot, and this is a sort of specialized little subsystem that allows you to use JavaScript for the specific purpose of having a settings button which the user or player can click into and make changes as they play through the game. So as you can see here, I have a very basic program, and you might notice that there's something here that isn't normally here. Normally we have this saves button, which allows us to save our progress or load a previously saved game. We have restart, which allows us to restart, as you might expect. But now we have this extra button called settings. And if we click on it, it tells us we have the heading settings. It tells us content settings. Make any changes you want, then choose OK. In fact, that's not true because we haven't put any options in there yet. But if there were options in there, once we'd made the changes, we could choose OK to make them happen. Or if we decided that the changes weren't actually better after all, we could reset to defaults, or we can just X out of it and continue with the game. So why would you want to have settings that the user can change as they play through the game? Well, I can think of a couple of main reasons. I'm sure there are many others, but I can think of a couple of main reasons. One of them is to do with the visual display. For example, you might make a game and you might try and set it up so that it can be played on a phone or an iPad or other tablet or on a desktop. And of course, the ideal layout for a desktop is not going to be the same as the ideal layout for a phone. Taking a desktop layout and shrinking it down to phone size, just having the one layout and just expanding or contracting the size, in my experience, usually results in either, if it's good for the phone, it'll be way too simple for a desktop, and if it's good for the desktop, it'll be way too complicated for the phone. So you might set up 3 different ways of laying it out, and then you might have a setting, and the user can choose which one they're using. Similarly, you might have some sort of fancy settings which you really like. You have a fancy font, or you have a background picture or something like that, and you like the way it looks, but you realize that some users might find it a bit much and just want to turn it off and have plain text or a plain background instead. And so you can set that up so that they can click settings and you can turn off the background picture or turn off the fancy font and have a plain font instead. So layout options is one. Another one is to do with rule options, and I think this is particularly likely to be true if you're adapting a game that is widely played in the real world, like poker or Monopoly or pool or something like that. For example, you've probably played Monopoly, and you've probably played the rule that anyone who pays money to the bank has to actually put it on a square, and if anyone lands on that square, they get that money. Well, that's not an official rule. But you might want to have that as an option, and so you could put that in the setting. The user can click that on or off, and then if they decide actually this doesn't make the game better at all, they can, you know, go back and change it. Similarly, in Monopoly, if somebody doesn't buy a property, you're meant to have an auction for that property, but virtually nobody plays that, at least in my experience in Australia. So you might want to have, you know, auctions as an option. And just in general, if a game is really widely played, it usually has a bunch of house rules, a bunch of options, and you might want to program, you know, those possibilities. I'm sure there's lots of other, you know, I'm sure there's lots of other reasons as well, of course, but those are the two main ones that I thought of. Now, I should say that from what I can tell, this doesn't allow you to do new stuff. You could still have, without having this settings button, you could still have an option within the game to click to go to a passage that has the settings, and the player can click things on and off and then choose OK, and that sets up the settings. So I don't think this allows you to do anything that you couldn't do before. It just, or without it, it just makes it smoother. It sets up the button in the sidebar, and it doesn't make you program it from scratch. There's a lot of shortcuts that allow you to get what you're trying to get done much more quickly. So with that caveat, I would like to spend the rest of the video showing you how to set up this settings button, and then we will, in the next video, talk about having options. So, because it's all done in JavaScript, usually, or what seems to be the best way to me, is you would go to Story, once you've set up your game, once you've made sure that it is a Sugarcube game, you would go to JavaScript, which is this. You have to choose Story, and then you choose JavaScript. You go here, and you would add the stuff you want in here. You can also do it inside a passage using script, the script tag. So script, and then you do the JavaScript, and then you do /script. But either way, it'd be exactly the same. If you decide you want to do it in the passage, you would just do what you do here, but do it in this, you know, in the passage instead within those script tags. I'm going to assume that you want to do it within the Story JavaScript, because that's what the Story JavaScript is broadly for. So now, don't worry about this, or at least this is not relevant to what we're going to talk about. This is some JavaScript that I put in every program that I write, which makes it so that when I do a line break in a passage, I don't want a line break to appear on the screen when we run the program. And this, I have found, is absolutely vital, because if you want to lay out your code so that it's easy to read, you need lots of line breaks. And if each of those is counted as a line break when you run the game, every page has this huge sort of row of line breaks before there's any text, and it looks really weird. So I reckon you always have to set that up, or at least I find that I do for what I want. So don't worry about this. That's not part of it. We're only dealing with what's down here. So I'll just zoom in a little bit. There we go. It's actually quite simple. We go setting.addHeader. So setting is a capital S. And note that it's setting, not settings. Even though this button is settings plural, we're doing setting singular. Setting.addHeader, and the S has to be a capital and the H has to be a capital, and nothing else can be a capital. And then we have a bracket and a semicolon, and inside the bracket we have at least one set of quotes, and we can have two. So we have content settings, and, well, in this case I've said content settings, and then I've put make any changes you want, then choose OK. Now, and then they appear, content settings, make any changes you want, then choose OK. Now, I wouldn't normally choose to have both of those, because I feel like having the heading settings and then it says content settings, well, that seems a bit redundant. And I think most people would probably know how a settings dialog works. I think they'd probably know that, yeah, you make the changes and then you choose OK, or you reset, or you X out of it. I think people sort of pick that up. So I would probably choose not to have either of those. But I just laid it out like that to show you how you can get those two headings if you want them. And I've got some comments down here about different ways that we could do it with less text coming up. So I've got setting.add header. Oh, God damn it. That's okay. That's meant to be like, sorry, I just realized I made a mistake. I'll fix this in the version that goes up to that goes onto itch.io in the link in the description. But yeah, sorry. So this is what it's meant to look like. Let's pretend that that's what it looked like when I opened it up. Okay, so you can have setting.add header bracket, and then you can just have two quotes, and that will mean that you don't have this main heading, and you can just have the subheading if you want. You can have setting.add header and just have the two quotes, and that will not have either the heading or the subheading. Or you could have the heading without the subheading, and you do that by setting.add header, and then you just have something within the first set of quotes, and then you don't have a comma and the second set of quotes. And then I've got a note that you can do setting.add header and then just bracket end bracket, but that makes the main title be the word undefined, which is probably not what you want. So I wouldn't recommend. You can do this in the sense that it doesn't generate an error or crash the program or anything, but it probably doesn't have the effect that you would want. If you want to have nothing for the main heading, you want this set of double quotes. So that is how you set it up. Of course, setting it up isn't much use until we have some actual options that people can change, but that's something that I will deal with in the next video. I should say that if you want to download this to have a look at it, it'll look like this rather than what it looked like when I loaded it up. It's in the other projects zip file, and it's then in the miscellaneous subfolder. As I do more of these, I might create a separate settings API subfolder, but for now, this is in the miscellaneous subfolder. But I will leave it there for now. I hope that was useful or interesting to at least some of you, and I hope you will tune in next time.